We're here at CyberScoop's Zero Trust Summit with Ron Fritzemeier, Solutions Architect at Intel. Ron, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So I'd like to start by asking, how do you see OMB's Zero Trust requirements for agencies? How do you see it, their ability to adopt enterprise-wide identity and access management and authentication, and multifactor authentication tools? How's that impacting the wider government contractor community and companies like Intel?
So I believe, even as we heard here today, right, many government agencies have already been taking on many of the steps and pieces that lead toward capabilities that could become zero trust in terms of an overall framework. But the challenge I think that we're seeing with this directive, which is good, but nonetheless it puts pressure on the agencies, right, is to start talking about how do we continue to move security forward, but at the same time understand it in that larger overall context of, because zero trust is about ensuring that you actually have mission security and can manage risk in your enterprise, right? And so I think the challenge for agencies now is to understand that they need to be able to know how to take the activities that they've taken on so far and map them into what is sort of their strategy of the way to go forward. And do that in a way that keeps moving. Sometimes when you have what appears to be this very large requirement, okay, you now have to have a zero trust enterprise. It can almost bring people to the place of they can't go anywhere because it's such a big problem. But even as we've heard today, the challenge is to take it step by step. So understand sort of the big picture, if you will, the guiding principles of the concepts behind zero trust, and then take what you have and figure out how to step it forward. So I think agencies have a good way to move forward with this, but it's challenging because it's different than sort of the historic buy the next tool. It's more about take those steps forward that move you to the end game of the overall zero trust in the enterprise.
That makes sense. And then next, what challenges do you see government agencies still facing trying to comply with requirements, for example, to get a complete inventory of authorized devices and also ensure that their endpoint detection and response tools are properly deployed?
So I think there are two challenges. One is just the fact that no agency is in a position where you can kind of throw away everything you have today and start anew, right? So that means that there's by definition, in many cases, a legacy challenge. Agencies have to address how do you get to endpoint detection and all that asset management in an environment where you've got to sort of collect everything you have. The good news, again, many agencies have been working very hard at this already, but it remains a challenge in part because I'll say that legacy status that many agencies have. It's exacerbated, especially for those as we've moved into a much more mobile, dynamic environment. And as you know, the pandemic over the last couple of years has really accelerated the idea of mobility in the federal government workforce. And so that's actually increasing the challenge of ensuring that you have good endpoint detection and response, as well as asset management when you have such an increase in sort of mobility in the dynamic endpoints in your enterprise.
Well, Ron Fritzemeier, thank you so much for joining us here at the Zero Trust Summit.
Thank you for having me.